Okay, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the What the Fantasy Football Show. Got a lot of great things to cover. It is week 9 already. Can you believe it? Week 9, half the season over. We're looking at Thanksgiving right ahead of us. It's just nuts. It goes so fast after all the work we do for it. But we got a lot of stuff to cover with you tonight. Of course, we have great crew to do it with. But first, let me tell you, we are a member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network, bringing you all kinds of podcasts that cover everything from IDP to Dynasty to Superflex, everything. We got a pod for you for everything. Go over and check us out at fulltimefantasy.com. I got to bring in the man, the myth, the legend in his own mind, Mr. Tony Sincata.
Yes, in my own mind and my mother's mind. Kenyon Drake playing in Arizona this week. David Johnson banged up. Chase Edmonds out. Jim Day, Kenyon Drake, people going to waiver wire tonight. Everybody always needs running backs. What are our expectations for Kenyon Drake?
I'm not having a lot of big expectations for Kenyon Drake, especially not this week. Look, he's just come over to a team that has a different up-tempo offense that he doesn't know a ton of, and he's going up against one of the best defenses in the league in San Francisco. I really don't have a lot of faith in Drake this week. I mean, I get it. If you have to start him because you really have no other options, then you got to start him. But I don't expect much from him.
There's Mike Blewett. Mike, not a bathroom attendant, not in love with him either. Mike, your thoughts on Kenyon Drake?
I mirror Jim's thoughts. I think coming over to a new team in a week where that team doesn't have a lot of time to prepare, although I understand that Drake didn't play on Monday night for the Dolphins. I think it's too much to ask going up against the Niners. Clearly in week 9, when you have bye weeks for backs like Devonta Freeman and Joe Mixon and Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, you may have to utilize some guys that you don't want to, but I would avoid Drake because the only positive outcome is if he falls into the end zone somehow.
I just got a weird Facebook invitation. Someone invited me to Friends Who Like Angels. I don't even know if they're California Angels, Angels in Heaven. I have no idea.
Jim, I really thought you were going another direction with that, but I'm glad you said Angels.
Jim, I'm going to ask you. Jalen Samuels looks like he'll be the man in Pittsburgh this week. Connor dealing with an AC joint issue. Samuels catches the ball out of the backfield, but can he run the ball from the line of scrimmage? Will he be in on the goal line? Your thoughts on Jalen Samuels?
Well, look, not only are you dealing with James Conner dealing with the injury, but also Benny Snell is not 100% either. So it could all fall on Jalen Samuels' back in this one. And while I don't love him as a true running back in this game, I do expect him in PPR leagues to get quite a few catches. The one thing we know about Mason Rudolph is he likes dumping off the pass. He likes those short passes. So that should work really well with Jalen Samuels because we know that's the strength of his game. So on that basis, figuring he's going to be involved in the passing game, I think he's a decent start this week.
What's your thoughts, Mike, on Jalen Samuels? Do you like Salians or Kenyon Drake? Which one do you want on the waiver wire?
I mean, I'll definitely take Samuels, but he's also coming off an injury. While what Jim said is accurate about him receiving the sheer volume, I think going up against this Colts team, I can see both teams slowing it down. It shades towards the under for me. So you're just going to win on volume. I don't think you expect a massive production day out of Samuels. But like I said, during bye weeks, maybe he's a flex play. I just don't expect much efficiency out of him.
AJ Green comes out this week, says, I want to be a Bengal. I want to stay with the Bengals my whole career. Jim, what do you think about players that work their ass off to become an NFL player, to be an elite player, and say, hey, I don't mind losing the rest of my life. I'll only play 16 games this way.
There's so many other things that could be going into this. Maybe it's a ploy, maybe it's not. If he wanted out, he's got to be mad that they didn't try to trade him yesterday on the Tuesday deadline for the trades. It made all the sense in the world to trade him. Elderly wide receiver, team is definitely rebuilding or needs to in a better way. And all the injuries that have been piled up on him lately. So for them not to trade him, that's just stupidity number one. His stupidity is wanting to stay in Cincinnati. Maybe his family likes it there. Maybe his wife doesn't want to move. Who knows what's behind that? Maybe it's just a ploy. We just don't know.
Mike, I was just touching myself to see if I had ED. since Jim Day called a 31-year-old man elderly.
Yeah, that was a tough adjective to use, but I think that's where we're at when guys are 30 and injured 3 years in a row. So my thought process is that I think they should have worked to get a deal done for him. And while I don't know if this is a negotiating ploy on his part, I think he should want to be on a team that actually has the compass pointing north towards trying to get some wins. And that's just not where his head is. That's not where their head is at right now. So I struggle to find why this is a good fit long term. In fact, I remember reading some comments on Twitter yesterday after the deadline passed. And it's just fans, just Bengals fans talking about it. But the consensus from a bunch of Bengals fans was, let's just sign him long term and put a statue up for him in front of Paul Brown Stadium. And I remember thinking, God, these fan bases that struggle are really eager to erect statues of guys that, as good as they are, haven't really done anything in the context of the league. AJ Green getting a statue is just you patting yourself on the back for drafting a guy well. It doesn't mean that he's brought any titles to your town of any significance.
I'll tell you what, Jim, I find it odd that a guy.
Wait. Okay, I get what Mike's saying, but by that rationality, then Dan Marino sucked.
Dan Marino, at his retirement, was a surefire lock Hall of Famer and considered to be perhaps the greatest passer in the history of the league.
But he didn't win nothing.
That's fair, but given where he was
and the best passer in the league, he should have won something.
That is not true. We can get it to go down a Dan Marino wormhole, and I would suggest that he broke enough records and pushed the passing evolution of the game forward enough that he was worthy of a statue. And that's a tricky one, but it's a lot less tricky than AJ Green.
I think Mike actually has a point here. I think because there's no other – none of this makes any sense at all. A wide receiver, the career's running down. You're going to go on a losing team with a bad offensive line and no quarterback and play it out. I mean, he must really want the statue. That's
how
what
do
it's
you
got
know? But if they trade him, how do you know where he goes? He could end up with the same.
He's in Cincinnati, Jim.
Anybody trading for him yesterday, he would have been a winning.
Unless he goes to Miami, Jim, he'll be all right. I'll tell you what, the closest guy that has a statue to me is Derrick Henry. Actually, has a statue in his hometown of Yulee.
Really?
Yeah.
That's early to get a high school player. It's like 25 years old. A lot of stuff can go wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised if he paid for it.
Yeah. You think that's it?
I got a statue of myself in my backyard. Funded by me. Voted on by me.
That'd be great. All right, real quick, guys. We got to move on real quick. Jim, who is the one guy in your life you know that would pay for his own statue?
Ooh, my eldest brother.
Your eldest brother. How about Mike Blewett? Who's the one guy that would...
The biggest asshole I know.
This is therapy for Jim, this show.
Do I have to know him personally?
No, you don't have to know him. You can throw any name out there.
The active president of the United States.
Oh, there's no doubt that he would have a statue.
I mean, there probably already is one. I just don't know where.
I'm going to go with the King, Scott Engel. Any guy that calls himself the King and writes up article for people to read his article and says, check out what the King says.
He is the king. He is fantasy.
He's got to have his own statue. Next, last week I watched the Chargers play. And I got to tell you, and I don't know if you guys watched the game, and if you're a Keenan Allen owner, I hope you didn't. I watched this guy fall down several times on this field on pass routes, and everyone's going to say, well, maybe it was the cleats. No other player was falling down except Keenan Allen, and he fell down 5 or 6 times. They fired their offensive coordinator. He's been dealing with a hand. Mike, are you worried about Keenan Allen?
He got 10 targets the other day, and I benched him in the guillotine league that we're in, and it cost me the guillotine because I played him. I benched him in favor of Larry Fitzgerald, who I thought would have enough volume to get by, and it cost me 10 points, and I got chopped because of it. I think if the volume is there, why not just keep rolling him out there? What I'm concerned about with the Keenan Allen, the reason I benched him the other day, is I thought he was going to go out there run 5 or 6 routes and be on the sideline.
Absolutely.
And they're already saying it's Tuesday as of yesterday. They're already saying he'll be out there on a limited basis. So
That's what they said
you are
last
playing
week,
with fire.
too.
All right. You're playing with fire with Keenan Allen.
Yeah, Jim, you have any concerns? I had concerns last week. Same thing as Mike. I didn't play him in any of my leagues, and he absolutely came through. And I watched the game. Like I said, he fell down 5 or 6 times running routes.
Yeah, but it wasn't like he had a great game. He had 7 catches for 53 yards. So everything was short, right around line of scrimmage type passes. It wasn't anything that really tried to explode him down the sideline or do anything like that. This whole offense, this whole Chargers offense right now just looks so bad. That offensive line is killing them. They can't hold up to it at all. And it's really putting Rivers back on his heels all the time. And, you got 3 good weapons there, and Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry back, and they just can't make use of it because Rivers is running for his life.
It's the O-line, and Gordon has confused it now. They were better off when Gordon wasn't there. And I know Gordon is a talented player, but it has confused the offense now because now they are spreading the touches even thinner behind this offensive line, like Jim aptly stated, is a mess.
I played Mike Williams this week in DFS, and it didn't work out well. It didn't work out well.
They did not.
That's why I'm going to be a bathroom attendant someday. We have not seen
nice extra cash on the side.
Yes. At least you know the tricks to make a little cash there.
In 2019, we have not seen the same Alvin Kamara as we saw in 2018. How much of it is an injury? How much of it is regression? What are your expectations for Kamara going forward the rest of the season, Jim?
Well, I think we're going to finally see what they swore they were going to do when they brought Latavius Murray in, is that they're going to actually start to give him some work. They said all along that they wanted to limit Kamara's touches and keep him fresh and healthy, and they didn't do that. They made him the bell cow. They gave Latavius Murray, 6-7 touches a game, and, Kamara gets hurt, and all of a sudden Latavius Murray comes out and says, well, that's okay. I can do this. We don't need him. And he does it 2 weeks in a row in big fashion. So at this point, I think while Kamara comes back, he's still the starter. At this point, you have to think that they're going to give Murray a bigger chunk of that pie, and just to keep Kamara healthy and fresh for the playoff push.
I'll tell you, Mike, I think Jim hit it on the head because I've never been a Murray fan, and last week he looked as good as he's ever played, and he actually looks svelte. He wasn't a big running back last week. He was catching passes. He was running good. He looked really good, and it'd be crazy not to use them both.
I think it speaks to how a lot of times we evaluate running backs. You put them in the right offense with some creative play calling and good blocking, and they can be a superstar too. I think what Jim said is really curious to me in that we all thought that it would be wise. This is all of us thought it would be wise if they just took a little bit of the pressure off of Kamara. And I think they got so nervous when Breeze went down that they weren't willing to do it. So they put Kamara out there to take all the carries, and it's hurt them. Now, I would suggest the same as Jim. Just take the pedal off the gas a little bit for Kamara specifically, because you need him for January. This team can and could win a Super Bowl. So make sure he's completely healthy in January into February, and let Latavius Murray do the work that he did these past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think to see both those guys, it's going to be really interesting to me going forward how that
They're both valuable fantasy-wise
plays out. Yeah, because I think Murray's going to get you there. If you haven't had a trade deadline, if you could get an elite back, let me run a scenario through you, Jim. Would you trade Alvin Kamara for Aaron Jones, Jim?
Ooh, tough one. Jones, the thing I love about Jones is he just gets in the end zone so often. And he did that last year, even on limited touches. Last year, crazy. Had, 10 touchdowns in very limited time. We're seeing this year, even, he's, getting 11, 12 carries a game. But it's doing a lot of damage on the passing game, too.
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't think I would, because of the history of Kamara and what he's done, but it is a lot closer than I would have thought it would have been a month ago.
That's true. I'm with Jim. I would do the same. I'd keep Kamara. I do think Jamal Williams will still continue to be a part of the offense. Jones has gotten tremendous touchdown equity, which you can't necessarily count on moving forward. I like Kamara a little bit better, but Aaron Jones has become really valuable. I regret passing on him in most drafts because it's clear for the back half of the season that he has a fantasy MVP type written on him.
Last week, we were speaking about San Diego and Keenan Allen issues. What were your thoughts on, and you mentioned Melvin Gordon. Jim, is it time to be done with Austin Eckler? I mean, you look at it, Eckler's averaging 21 fantasy points a game, but last week we saw his work diminished.
Well, look, they keep saying they want to get Gordon back involved, and he is their, number one. And I think he's been trying to round back into game shape. We talked about it a lot before he came back. And, you can be in shape but not be in game shape. We hear this every year, but people don't really take into account how important it is. It's a totally different thing being in shape than being out on the field, taking all those hits and being able to recover from it and still make moves. That takes time to get back to. And I think we're seeing him start to come back to that. But at the same time, they'd be stupid if they don't keep Eckler involved. Last week was just totally off the charts the other way. At this point, if I'm them, I have to be thinking that Eckler's my guy next year, even though he's not under a big contract yet. He's should be their guy next year. He proved he could do it at an elite level when they gave him the opportunity. But I think right now, they're okay with trying to run Gordon as much as they can. They know they're not going to have him next year. What do they care how much wear and tear they put on him?
Mike, what's your thoughts on the situation there with Austin Eckler? Is it time for him to go on fantasy teams?
No, I don't think so. I think we mentioned earlier, this offensive line is having major issues. I think removing Eckler from the game plan has confused the offense some. I'll say to Jim's point, by next year, I'm in a keeper league where Justin Jackson has been an absolute zero, but I haven't cut him because I drafted him so late. And I think by next year, that's the rotation. Eckler could be the main part, but Jackson filling in. And I think that's a reality moving forward. Gordon won't be on the team next year, most likely. And I think they need to get Eckler involved in the game plan instead of pulling out lucky wins. They should try to distance themselves from some teams instead of relying on the last plays in the fourth quarter. I think Eckler is the best way to do that.
Austin Eckler, fans don't give up hope yet. Got to ask, Jim, what's your thoughts on Teddy Bridgewater? He had a nice run with the New Orleans Saints. Do you see him being a successful NFL starting quarterback in 2020?
I hope so. I've always liked the kid. I think he's got a lot of good talents and things that we can use on the field. If not for that crazy injury, I'm pretty sure he would have been going a long time by now. I'm glad that the Saints took a chance on him, kept him on the team, and he got a chance to actually play. So I think he made himself a lot of money over those, 5-0 wins? He did enough to get the team where it needed to be instead of losing the games for them. And that's big to a lot of people out there. I think he could be a starting quarterback for quite a few teams that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'll get that opportunity. Who do you see as a better NFL starting quarterback, Mr. Mike Blewett? Would it be Mr. Minshew or Teddy Bridgewater going forward?
It's a good question. It's a pretty good comparison. I think I've been really impressed with the way Bridgewater stepped in. Obviously, it is a better scenario, personnel, and everything else. But I think straight up across the league, if you ask general managers, money aside, I think they would take Bridgewater over Minshew. I think they think that he's able to engineer the offense perhaps a little bit more successfully. He's never going to be a wildly successful downfield passer, but I think I don't want to call him a game manager because I think that's disrespectful to his skill set. But that being said, I think Bridgewater probably gets a better second act than maybe Minshew does at first, because I don't know that this Jaguars team, as much as they're fighting right now, I don't think it's ultimately going to be successful as is. I don't see them having all the necessary pieces to have a huge year this year. And they're going to start to lose guys off of that defense. They've already lost Ramsey. Calais Campbell is a year older. I just don't know that team sticks together for Minshew to be able to guide them to playoff wins, et cetera.
The Minshew mania is going wild, but I think Nick Folk will be back in action here. Last but not least, Jim, we were thinking Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder, maybe fantasy worthy when Sam Darnold returned after 2 subpar performances by Donald. Are we off Robbie Anderson and Jamison Crowder?
No, actually, not at all, because they have a great schedule moving forward. Sure, a couple of down games, and hopefully that gets people off of them a little bit. Maybe you can go out there right now and make a trade for these guys. That's what I would do, no doubt about it. I love what we're looking at for them going forward. It's a great schedule. I mean, you can't really – they get the Dolphins, they get the Giants, they get the Redskins, they get the Raiders, they get the Bengals, they get the Dolphins again, the Ravens, and then finally the Steelers in Week 16, which is the toughest matchup they have. So out of all of that, that's a lot of goodness there. I expect this offense to put up a lot of points down the stretch.
Mike Blewett, last but not least, what kind of candy will we be giving out on Halloween?
We have an assortment of Snickers, Twix, M&Ms, Skittles, Starburst, a few Kit Kats thrown in. I did the purchasing, and I think those are you got some top 10 candies in there, and I feel good about our assortment.
Cool. I'm going to be at your house.
Come on down.
Jim, what are you giving out for Halloween?
We actually got I don't do the non-chocolate candy. It's got to be chocolate for me.
Yeah,
when I give out candy, it's got to be chocolate. I got all kinds of things. I got M&Ms, peppermint patties, Snickers, Mr. Goodbar. I got a whole big selection bag that we got from one of the big stores, and it's got all chocolate in it.
Yeah, I'm a Tootsie Roll guy. See, I like Tootsie Rolls, so that's what I buy, and I hope the kids don't come so I can eat all the Tootsie Rolls. I think the way to go there. But what I do hope is no kids end up going to Gabriel Morency's house for Halloween. Can you imagine what he'd be giving out, Mike?
I think Gabe's house would have the lights off with no decorations, and he won't be giving anything out because he'll be at the FanDuel Sportsbook.
Or he'd be on the lawn saying, "Get off my lawn!"
Oh, thank God. So, you know what? There's certain people that we all know and love, but you just don't want kids showing up at their house at Halloween. And Gabe stinks out for me, but he probably won't be home. It's too early for him, actually. He goes to bed once the Edmonton Eskimos on the west coast of Canada are at halftime. I think he goes to bed.
He's sort of out and about when the kids are doing their mayhem madness or whatever it is, like the night before Halloween or the night of Halloween. Like where I grew up in Queens. Guys ride around in pickup trucks.
I think it's a new rule. You can't go and give out Halloween candy if you bet on Little League games.
If you bet on Little League games,
it's fair. Gabe is eliminated from giving out Halloween candy. I think he's had some cash down on the Williamsport every August, so you might have to eliminate him.
I absolutely
That's
agree.
Some hardcore stuff
WTF
right
fantasy football. Yeah, absolutely hardcore. Jim Day, Mike Blewett. Jim, where can people check out during the week?
Just find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz. I do everything. It's there all the time.
Mike, how are you doing this week? Where are you going to be?
I'm good. At Mike Blewett. You find me on Sports Grid TV every Sunday and on a couple of weeknights a week on In Game Live.
Guys, if you see me walking around, shake my hand because I only go to the restroom. Germ-free for me. And we'll see you next week on WTF Fantasy Football.